really excited to be here, and I know this is already the fourth iteration of this event, but it's actually my first one, and so I'm really glad to be able to be here and also follow that amazing panel, which I think was a really great jumping off point for what I want to talk to you all about today, right? Which is that I really want to give this picture of our path to quantum advantage, and especially what we're looking at IBM. Now, our mission at IBM is very simple. It's to build useful quantum computing and bring it to the world, and then also to make the world quantum safe. Now, why do we care about building quantum computers? Well, look back 100 years, right? It's when quantum mechanics was first born. And we've heard a lot about already that this is the International Year of Quantum, right? That the UN has anointed, and we've been doing a lot of the celebrations of that history. But really, quantum mechanics describes the complex math that really governs our whole world. It's, in some sense, it is the operating system of nature, of the universe. But in many ways, the computers that we've been building, anything that we have with our phones and our laptops and our traditional computers, it hasn't been able to run that math at scale yet. And we're only starting to unlock that with some of the quantum computers that we're building today. And that's why it's so exciting that we're getting to get to a point where we're getting a lot closer to addressing some of these really challenging problems in the world. Like actually building better fertilizers and coming up with improved food supply problems, right? Or from designing better drugs and understanding ways to have more targeted therapeutics. Or financial series modeling, right? Improving the predictive nature of risk and so forth that is going to impact so many different industries. Now, these are all billion-dollar problems, right? We're talking about a huge scale when we're talking about commercializing quantum computing. And in fact, BCG recently prognosticated that this is a $500 billion opportunity for all of us at maturity in quantum computing. Think about that. That's huge, right? And there are all these industries that touch so many of our lives that quantum has the chance to really take a foothold on. But what is it going to take to actually commercialize and realize this market? Well, I think it's really on two fronts. We need to prime the ecosystem to explore new ways to leverage the quantum computers that we build to solve them. And we need to build the platforms that actually allows the users to do so. And so at IBM, that is exactly what we're doing. We've been leading quantum computing along all dimensions in terms of hardware, software, and ecosystem. Now, I know a lot of people like to say that, and they're saying leading in different various dimensions, but we really put our money where our mouth is, and we can show how we're leading in these different dimensions. When it comes to quantum hardware, I think there were some discussions of benchmarks. A simple thing to look at, really, number of qubits and the error rates. Really simple in terms of a rubric for how to consider performance. You obviously want to have larger numbers of qubits so that you can perform larger circuits, quantum circuits. It tells you basically the size of the potential molecule. You can look at the number of features you can encode. But the number of qubits is absolutely important to continue to scale for the problem sizes to be addressed. And then, of course, you need depth. You need depth of those circuits, which is governed by the error rates. Now, we've been pushing on all fronts in this case, in terms of scale as well as quality, and we intend to continue to do that. And not only that, but as we make this year-over-year progress of improving these devices in performance, we make them available. They're usable. They're benchmarkable. You can go and test these right away today. They're not just a point that I claim. There's something that can be benchmarked and actually rigorously tested by anyone. Now, along that dimension of performance, there's also the key feature of speed. when it comes to actually running real workloads, you're not just running a single circuit and you're done. But real workloads involve iterations of multiple quantum circuits in conjunction with classical runtimes. And the speed of iteration there is really important to actually get real results in a reasonable amount of time versus taking, say, days or even weeks for results to return. And that's why when it comes to different platforms, superconducting qubits has a significant advantage in speed over atomic-based or ion-based systems. Hundreds to thousands times of speed impact, which also translates to real dollars when you start to look at the cost to actually run these on various different platforms. And so really what we see with superconducting qubits and why at IBM we focus so much into this technology is that it's the most performant and it brings the best value. Now let's talk about software, right? I think there was a good discussion earlier about openness. Well, the openness comes in the software stack. And Qiskit is our open source software development kit that really allows for the community to build on top of it, but in a way that scales and in a way that also leads to extracting the best performance from the underlying hardware. Qiskit is by far the most popular quantum software development kit out there. It's been it hit 74% on Unitary Foundation survey in 2024. And in terms of dependent projects, it's also the one with the most integrated programs that are built right on top of it. Now, what's fun is that in the early days when we first released Qiskit, it was just about engaging the community and learning, and it was really fine-tuned to best work at a scale of like 5 qubits. But we really focused on driving its performance at the 100 qubit level, right? And that performance is also, again, benchmarkable and measurable through open source suite of benchmarks we call BenchPress, where we were able to compare it against a number of the other software development kits out there. And Qiskit outperformed all of them in terms of reduction in number of 2-qubit gate counts in constructing circuits, as well as in the speed of generating those quantum circuits. When you're really starting to use quantum computers at scale, you definitely don't want your software to be the bottleneck. And so Qiskit 2.0, which is our latest iteration, continues to push those benchmarks ahead and is really sort of the hallmark in terms of performance from a software perspective. Then from the ecosystem point of view, so IBM has really built a large global community around quantum computing. Since we first started putting systems on the cloud, we have now deployed cumulatively 80 quantum computers. This has touched 600,000 users across our ecosystem. And in terms of our learning platform, which I talked about as an important piece of how we actually grow those users out there, 10 million learners through our IBM Quantum learning platform. And today, our business ecosystem, the IBM Quantum Network, has over 275 members. And this consists of industry members, national laboratories, universities, startups. Many of you are here. And really, we see this as the network that we're growing around our ecosystem to drive some of those challenging problems that Sarah and others are already mentioning, but exploring quantum advantage and how to best leverage the machines that are coming out. And really, you start to see that we're building this groundswell. And if anything, I think that we're at a point where our cycles of learning are starting to accelerate. So I want to give you a little bit of history in the past few years of why I feel so confident about that. Right, so in 2022, we first broke the 100 qubit barrier. This was with our IBM Quantum Eagle processor, had 127 qubits. But at that scale of 100 qubits, we talk about 100 qubits a lot, right? But it's really important to know why we talk about 100 qubits. Because it's at the scale where quantum states are no longer able to be represented classically. Right? So you see, when you represent the state of 10 qubits, a classical computer with only like 16K of RAM can do it. 30 qubits, a laptop, but this is exponential, right? So 31 qubits, you need something like twice the RAM of a laptop. And when you get to 48 qubits, we're talking about representing that with the memory that might be in a modern supercomputer. And at 100 qubits, right, it's just untenable in terms of the total number of multiples of supercomputers that you'd need to represent that state. Today, our most performant quantum processor is the IBM Quantum Heron, and it's at 156 qubits. And it's the most performant in the world. And one of the reasons that we're really good at making quantum processors is because IBM is really excellent at its semiconductor fabrication. Today, we're the only team that really are approaching this not as a research project, but really as an engineering challenge. And we're doing cycles of learning as you would have seen in the semiconductor days of year after year, going from node to node. And it's what's let us bring in some of these technologies that are so key to scaling and scaling in a reproducible and reliable way. Things that are common in your current phones and your processors and your laptops, like bump bonds and multi-level wiring and through silicon vias. This takes a lot of effort to build in. But these capabilities allow us to really engineer at scale and to scale with quality. And so these, along with other innovations across our hardware and software stack, really helped us actually push Eagle towards the milestone in 2023 when we demonstrated what we call quantum utility. And so here in quantum utility, the idea is that we have a quantum computer that's able to perform accurate computations at a scale that are beyond the scope of exact brute force classical simulation. It's what you're able to do when you're at that scale of 100 qubits. And here, really, if you were, the idea is that in utility, you want to be able to run these quantum circuits that are challenging for the best classical computers and might even use classical approximate methods. The key here is that we really want to look at problems where there's also verifiability, right? At IBM, we're not just interested in running random circuits. In this result in 2023, we demonstrated quantum utility with this problem where it had a particular Ising spin model which was difficult to simulate classically, had no exact solution. When we published the result in Nature, within weeks, there were actually multiple approximate classical solvers that tried to solve the problem as well. But the fun thing here was that they all differed from each other in their results by about 20%. So I have to ask you, in the case where you don't have an exact classical solution, what's the right benchmark? I'd say that the quantum execution on real quantum hardware actually now becomes the validity and the arbiter of these types of problems. And it becomes the point of comparison for approximate classical solvers. That is what we mean by utility, and that's why it's such an important milestone. Now, at the end of 2023, we introduced our next generation processor. It was the IBM Quantum Heron. It's a new tunable coupler architecture, 5x improvement in the median 2-qubit error rate over the utility experiment, significant crosstalk improvements. It really allows us to reach this milestone now of running 5,000 circuits, 5,000 gate circuits. And we have 5 Herons that are available over the cloud for access, including a 6th one that's coming out soon with really remarkable numbers. Coherence time is in the 300 microsecond range. And now we're getting towards 2-qubit gate errors that are on the best cases at the 5e-4 level. So then the next milestone we want to get to is quantum advantage. And here we really mean a quantum computer performing an information processing task more efficiently, cost-effectively, or accurately than the best classical. And we are going to get there by using a technique called quantum-centric supercomputing, where we're going to have a hybrid architecture, leveraging the best from classical and quantum. And the key thing about this quantum-centric architecture is that we're already starting to work with it. Sarah talked a little bit about it, but really what we're looking at now is we're working with collaborators at Recon to model real molecular simulations of real molecules at a scale beyond what's been done before in quantum. Last year, we actually looked at iron sulfide clusters with them. First, at an exact solvable one, where we were able to actually match performance using quantum plus HPC with HPC alone. And then we looked at a problem where actually it's beyond exact classical simulation. And we've been continuously improving the performance of this, leveraging HPC plus quantum. And it's now at a scale where that becomes a point of comparison. At some point, we will really come up against the best classical methods and have a point of comparison for us to reach quantum advantage using this type of integrated quantum-centric architecture. And so I want to also give you a quick preview that we're driving towards a new processor that will be released later on in the end of the year, which will help work towards further quantum applications, which is the IBM Quantum Nighthawk. 120 qubits, continues with the tunable coupler architecture, and have a square lattice. With the square lattice versus the heavy hex, allows us to really compress the circuit depths to be more tenable, and something that we're really excited to bring to our users. And so this is why we really boldly believe that we'll get towards this quantum advantage milestone in 2026. And I know I'm running out of time, and so I think beyond 2026 we have one more big milestone that we do want to get to, right? Which is that we want to get towards fault tolerance, right? And we're talking about here that these are going to be large-scale fault-tolerant quantum systems, leveraging our quantum low-density parity check codes, and we have an architecture that we're going to be releasing very soon, and you're going to hear about. And so I'll leave you out with this one, with this QR code to say, get started with quantum, because it's already here in terms of actually accessing machines at the scale where you can explore these types of utility scale problems. Thank you very much.